Hey everybody, welcome back to Disneyopolis. I'm Bryan. As always, we're here at City Hall. I'm glad you're here as well. Got a great show for you today, as always. Best friend, producer extraordinaire, Paper Duffy is with us. And I'm proud to say that he got together with my lovely daughter and they made me this. I have to show this to you. A Mickey Mouse pancake. With butter, with peanut butter, I might add. Can you see that? I hope you can, because I about spilled syrup all over me. Good stuff though. Got a really great show today. Before we get too deeply into the show, I did want to remind everybody that we have just a few days left of our Cars 2 DVD giveaway. If you want the backstory on this, go to the mystery unboxing video that I did about a week and a half ago and check that out. The only thing you have to do in order to get your copy is we're going to do random drawing. You just have to subscribe to the Disneyopolis channel. So click that button, do it. You'll be so glad that you did. And you get your name in the drawing for one of 2 copies of Cars 2. So on with the show. Today's topic, and one I'm really excited about, and this is one I've been thinking about doing for quite a long time, is extinct Disney attractions. And I'm not just talking about at Walt Disney World, though, as always, that's where most of my experience is. But I'm going to highlight just a few, and as always, with every show, I encourage you to comment down below and let me know if I hit on your favorite extinct attraction, and if I didn't, tell me what it is, and maybe we'll probably end up doing a second show anyway. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get started. The first one I wanted to talk about is Skyway. Skyway was one of the original things to do at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Skyway was, what's a great way to put this? It's like a toaster full of people attached to a long cable that ran all the way through the park. Anyway, obviously not a toaster, but they were about the size, they were about the shape of a toaster, certainly not the size, but it held, you know, between 10, 15, 20 people sometimes. And basically it was a long cable that went all the way through different parts of both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. And it was a great way to see the parks. You know, sort of like today, if you go through, if you're on the TTA at Walt Disney World, how it kind of gives you a tour of different things that are happening in Tomorrowland. That's what the Skyway was, except it was kind of a bird's eye view of everything going on at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And I can remember as a kid, it was one of my favorite things to do. It was a D-ticket ride, so not exactly a headliner, but it was still enjoyable, and it was not fast moving, so you did get an opportunity to see what was going on. It was narrated as well, but this is something I think that even today would be relevant and would be fun. You know, I know that there were some reasons that they shut both of those down. I know with the Space Mountain refurb in I think it was 2009, they actually destroyed part of the infrastructure at Walt Disney World, and then back in Disneyland, they've taken both of them down, most of the infrastructure. But it was a great ride. I'd love to see them, and I'll just say this now: I'd love to see each and every one of these attractions come back in some format or another. I like nostalgia, if you haven't noticed, and this would be a great way to bring that back. But it was the Skyway. And again, enjoyable. It closed down in Disneyland in 1994, and 5 years later, almost to the day, at Walt Disney World in 1999. So if you did not get an opportunity to ride that, you missed out. It was really a lot of fun. So something I think everybody would enjoy. And if you get hold of some Disney history books, or even here on YouTube, you can do a search for them and you can see all of these attractions that I'm talking about and what a lot of fun they really were. Next up, Timekeeper. Now when people think of extinct attractions gone by, Timekeeper is not one of those that comes to your mind immediately. But for me, this was really an amazing attraction. There wasn't a lot to it. It was mostly animatronic and you know, projected. But this starred Robin Williams, Rhea Perlman, had Jeremy Irons, and it really was about it was about time travel, obviously, and the Timekeeper was voiced by Robin Williams. and Rhea Perlman played Nine Eyes. These are things you'll have to look up. But basically, it was just kind of a trip through time. Timekeeper creates this wonderful time machine. They go back into the past, sometimes too far into the past, sometimes too far in the future. But they end up meeting two of the pioneers of, at least in the literary world of time travel, H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. The interplay's fun. The film is even funner. And it was around for quite a while, actually. It closed in 2006. Probably the best part of the whole thing is the interaction between Robin Williams and everybody else in the cast. And if you know, that was one thing Robin Williams was great at. It was really kind of thinking on the fly. And even when he did the voice of Aladdin, they just kind of turned him loose with a general idea, and then they built the animation in large part around him because of his wonderful ability to just, you know, kind of riff back and forth really quick. But Timekeeper was a lot of fun. It's, you know, obviously it's since been replaced. It was the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor is where it's located, or where it was located, where that is now. But again, Timekeeper closed down in 2006. A lot of fun up until then. The next one, Body Wars. Body Wars actually was in Walt Disney World, and it used the exact same ride technology as Star Tours. Same ride technology that Star Tours still uses, you know, to a large part. But it was basically a story of, you know, being able to be miniaturized and injected into the human body for the purposes of research. And as a guest, you get to come along and you're microscopically shrunken and you're inserted into a body going after a splinter and see what's happening with the splinter and how it affects the body. Things go wrong, your ride vehicle ends up you know, running out of power. You end up going into an unauthorized area that you're not supposed to be at, and the goal is to save Dr. Cynthia Laird, you know, who ends up getting stuck basically. And it's a trip through the body, also showing how things like natural antibodies and things like that work. It had, you know, Disney's real fond of getting famous people to play parts in a lot of these, and this was no exception. They had Tim Matheson. They also had Elizabeth Shue as Dr. Lair. But it was a wonderful ride. You know, again, a little herky-jerky. It was the same technology and the same ride vehicle technology as we find on Star Tours, both the previous iteration and the current one. That closed down in 2007. Again, really, really wonderful ride. And one of the things that you'll notice about a lot of these that I'm talking about, as a matter of fact, pretty much all of them, is none of these rides were, or these attractions rather, were tied directly to a Disney property. These were standalone attractions that did just that. They attracted people. People enjoyed them, people liked them. Some of them got a little long in the tooth and needed updating from time to time. Most of them never got the updating. And because of that, they just kind of went stale. And, you know, as movie properties begin to generate revenue, and, you know, that's when Disney you know, hey, let's replace this. You know, it's an opportunity to draw people into the parks, tie in a popular movie property, and you know, I get the logic behind that. But that's one of the things that I always love about Disney, is that not only does Disney always looking forward and they have a future plan, but there are so many wonderful things in the past you can look back to and really enjoy. And like I said, none of these things that I've talked about were tied to any kind of a movie property. They were just standalone fun on their own. Up next, Extraterrestrial, the Alien Encounter. Now you're saying, what? Okay, this was the precursor to Stitch's Great Escape. I'm a fan of everything Disney. I just am. But there are just some things that just don't click with me, and I'm finding Stitch's Great Escape is one of those that doesn't click with very many people. And before you say anything, I've given this ride, this attraction, multiple chances to impress me, or, you know, say, well, maybe I judge it a little too harshly. I'm just not a fan. One thing I was a fan, though, of was Extraterrestrial, the Alien Encounter. Now, this had, again, big names, Kevin Pollak, Kathy and Jimmy at the time, and it was basically, the backstory is this corporate entity XS had basically they've come up with the technology to transport prisoners and you know, take them from place to place, planet to planet, through kind of like a teleportation thing. And they ended up accidentally transporting a mean, bad, nasty alien into Earth, into the theater area that you're at when you're on the ride itself, on the attraction, in the extraterrestrial, the alien encounter. Stitch's Great Escape uses pretty much the same theater, uses the same technology. Really, what they've done is they've replaced, you know, the villain. In this case, you know, the alien versus Stitch, and it was actually kind of scary, which is kind of something welcome, I think, to a lot of adults. You know, and nothing wrong with you know, things like It's a Small World and Dumbo, but a lot of us are adults and we like thrills and we like scary things, even beyond Haunted Mansion. But anyway, this in some ways was considered a bit too over-the-top frightening for a lot of the children. And of course, parents, not knowing, would bring their kids in, and kids would walk out, you know, mortified at what they'd just seen and experienced. But for me, I think the theming was a whole lot better for the extraterrestrial alien encounter. A whole lot better than Stitch's Great Escape. I love the the Lilo and Stitch movies. Hands down, some of my favorite Disney movies. But I think in a world of hit and misses for Disney, this was definitely a miss. And I think that, like I said, its precursor, Alien Encounter, was just a much better ride. It stayed active all the way up until 2003, which is when they made way for Stitch's Great Escape. It's kind of hard to find video on YouTube or other video sharing sites that does it justice as to just how spooky and just how scary it was. There are a few out there, though, that you can find, and so I heartily encourage you to look for it, and just for fun, watch it with the lights off and on loudspeakers if you got them, because it was fun. It was actually a really great attraction. The next two are personal for me. These are two that I felt were some of the real gems of what Walt Disney Imagineering was able to do in you know, in their theme parks, both in theming and in just the way it was presented. You know, one was a hidden gem, in my opinion, one of the best kept secrets at Walt Disney World and any of the parks, really, and the other was not a best kept secret at all. And to this day, it's still, there are calls for for the Walt Disney Company to bring it back. The first one I'm going to talk about is Maelstrom. Maelstrom was set in mythological Norway, a time of trolls and adventure on the high seas. And if you've ever had the opportunity to ride in it, it was just something different. Of course, it was located in Epcot in the Norway Pavilion, and it was kind of a twofer because the ride itself, I love the queue. I love the ride itself. The ride track was interesting, and it was mildly spooky, but not, you know, kind of in the same vein as Haunted Mansion. And when I say in the same vein, I'm talking about in a way that you know, it was comically spooky, I guess is probably the best way that I can describe it. But I just loved it. And the second part of the twofer is when you came off the actual ride, you were ushered into a theater, and they showed a movie called The Spirit of Norway. Still to this day, my favorite of any of the movies that are shown or that were shown at any Walt Disney World attraction. Just kind of a peek at what life in Norway was about. Like a lot of rides or attractions at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, interest had kind of waned in it. They never updated the film really to speak of. I know with the pavilions at Epcot, part of the agreement is that the countries that are represented in World Showcase are expected, or at least they were at the outset, to contribute to the cost of the upkeep of those pavilions. And I may be wrong in this, but I think I read somewhere where Norway kind of quit supporting it. But anyway, it was, you know, I would have loved to have seen it updated, not done away with. I know there are a lot of fans of Frozen. I love the movie myself. I've been caught in my car singing Let It Go at the top of my lungs, only to turn around to my left or right and realize people in the car next to me were watching me. So there's that. But having said that, I would have more preferred that we saw Frozen Ever After go into a place where I think it would have been a better fit, like Magic Kingdom, or maybe even Hollywood Studios. Nonetheless, nobody asked me, stockholder that I am. But back to Maelstrom. Maelstrom was just a little, it was different. It was something that you didn't find in other places throughout Walt Disney World. It was its own thing. And even the gift shop, as you come off of, as you come out of the movie and you end up in the gift shop, even the gift shop was unique. And I just like the different touches there. And one of my favorite pictures of my children is I have a daughter the one who made this waffle, standing next to a troll, the great big wooden troll. So Maelstrom was a great ride. It was, like I said, it was different. I love the theming. Hated to see it go. And I find it not, and it did not go unnoticed that on the final few days or weeks of Maelstrom's existence before they shut it down, the ride was constantly packed. And as a matter of fact, any of the trips that me and my family took down to Walt Disney World, there was never a time where we just walked right in. There was always a line to get onto Maelstrom. So anyway, rest in peace, Maelstrom. And I did not get an opportunity this last time. Our last trip, Frozen Ever After, hadn't begun its soft opening yet, so haven't had a chance to ride that. I'll reserve judgment on that until I experience it for myself. But again, Maelstrom, and again, that shut down in 2014 to make way for Frozen Ever After. The last one I want to talk about is probably the one that stirs the most discussion if you follow any of the Disney forum discussions on any of the unofficial websites or blogs. Even to this day, people still have a call to bring it back. It was different than anything Disney had ever done, and honestly, I think with the disappearance of it, I think we've seen probably the last of the spectacle that this attraction was. I'm talking, of course, about my beloved Horizons. Horizons was not open at the opening of Epcot. It was about the next year. But Horizons was an interesting and I think wonderfully detailed look into the future from different times in the past. They explored, the ride itself was an omnimover, and it had actually more steel in this. The whole project had more steel than Spaceship Earth does now. So it was a huge undertaking, huge building. Originally it was going to be multiple levels, and it was going to have quite a bit of of different things that never did eventually show up. And it was originally sponsored by General Electric, and then after they dropped their sponsorship, Disney continued the ride just without the GE branding on it. But you would get into this ride vehicle, and basically you would begin to experience what the future was like. Your narrators would kind of take you through, they would take you through what the future was going to look like from different parts of the past. One cool little tidbit, the woman who played the wife in the ride was the same woman who in the 70s played Mother Nature in the butter commercials. You'll have to look that up yourself. But anyway, you would go through, and it started back, again, a nod to Jules Verne. They showed what his thoughts about what the future would look like. They take you through what the future looked like in cinema. How we portrayed it, whether it was in the Trip to the Moon movie, from way early. I want to say, please correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say it was like 1910s, 1920s, something like that, maybe even 1890s. It was old. But things like that, looking at the future through like Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, what did the future look like to people in the 50s? The soundtrack was amazing. And if you're fortunate and you go look, I believe it's still available to get on mousebits.com. Not affiliated with them, but a wonderful resource if you're a Disney geek like I am, especially if you're really into the history of things Disney. But it would take you through that. It would take you through some of the advances in civilization that made the future possible. And it was really neat because this was split into, it looked at the future from three different perspectives. Your ride vehicle would go on land. It would show you terraforming. It would go in the sea where underwater communities would live, and it would show you communities built in outer space. All of it looking at what people thought of the future. And of course our host and hostess were from the future looking back at the past, but then they get a phone call. It's a hologram call. It's their grandson's birthday, and so you get an opportunity to see what they thought the 21st century would look like then. Really, really neat. Fantastic score. Great theming. It was just, how many times am I going to say the word wonderful? It just was really wonderful. Do go and look for, and you know what, for all these attractions, I'll put them in the show notes. I'll put links to all these so you can see them for yourself and kind of experience them. But for me, Horizons was the granddaddy of them all. It closed in 1999. It actually kind of closed in 1998, but then University of Energy and World of Motion were undergoing transformations. They had no big ticket rides in Future World at that time, so for the space of about a year, they actually brought back Horizons, opened it up again to the public, let it go for about a year, and then they shut it down, and then eventually they demolished it. That is where Mission Space is now. That's the area that it was at. One cool thing I do like about Disney is they did give a nod to, and they know that people loved it, but they gave a nod to Horizons and Mission Space. When you first walk into Mission Space, you see that really large rotating wheel. That is actually from that's one of the set pieces that was in Horizon. So again, really, really wonderful attraction. If there were any that I would bring back, that would be the one. As a matter of fact, you've probably seen me wear my shirt that says "Keep Calm and Bring Back Horizons." So anyway, fantastic, fantastic, all of these rides and attractions that are gone. I know there's some others out there that we didn't really talk about. Didn't even really get into things like the parades, like Spectral Magic, and none of the stage shows like Tarzan Rocks. But that's one of the great things about Disney. And one of the things I've learned to do is, with the obvious exception of, in my opinion, Stitch's Great Escape, I've learned to trust what they do. They get it right more times than they get it wrong. And we always have to remember that every new ride, all the classics were a new ride at some point. And at some point they replaced another ride. So anyway, I'll put the links, like I said, to these attractions in the notes below. Thank you so much for showing up today. This is one that I'm really looking forward to hearing your comments on. Tell me what kind of attractions or rides that you miss, or what kind of even the stage shows or the fireworks shows, or any of those. Like I said, I'm real big into Disney history and retro Disney. I mean, I'm still the guy that at least once a week I pull up the old top 7 must-sees, that were in the hotel rooms forever with Chris and Stacy, and maybe we'll talk about those one of these times. Again, I did want to remind you, just a few days left in the Cars 2 giveaway. Make sure you subscribe. I can't say it enough. We love the fact that you show up and you watch the videos, but we really want you to subscribe. That way you can get notified when there's new content. Plus, we want to network with you. We want to create a sense of community for what we're doing here. Anyway, again, thank you for coming. My name's Bryan. This is Disneyopolis. It's everything Disney all the time. You have yourselves a fantastic day.